Does anybody else want to quit? I knew you'd like that one. I got that story from Virginia. Sadly, Steve, a very healthy man, dropped dead at 44. And she has been a widow for nearly 50 years now. Sometimes there are two pictures that are so good that you've got to put them together. Now this really does tell a story too. 3 Purple Hearts. And I've heard as many as 7 Purple Hearts, but in this case, one of his wounds, his final wound, was to the spinal cord. So here's this young man, possibly a teenage year, and here's the result. The rest of his life was being taken care of and having a wheelchair. This man, maybe some of you remember Zagaroli Furniture Store in Muskegon. Well, one of the Zagaroli brothers was given his award by the man himself. You recognize Eisenhower? Yep. Well, the younger people wouldn't, but that deserves attention. I don't even have a name on this one. I just use it as a sample. Can you imagine a more moving picture that tells the story of World War II for so many hundreds of thousands of families? Those 2 darling little children, they had no idea why their daddy had to go away for a long time, and then the mother tried to keep the memory of the man alive until he actually came home. The little girl in the center is the only living person. She's my age. And when she hauled that picture out, I said, you have not only a family treasure here, but you have treasure for the whole city of Muskegon. I was so lucky, even though the mother had Alzheimer's, to meet her in the nursing home and show her the picture. Oh, she came alive. And she said, here's my family. And she had everybody gathering around and enjoying that special moment. She may not have remembered it the next day, but this is why I keep doing what I'm doing, these magical moments. I have to thank my sister, because when I started this, I was only thinking of living men. I went around and tried to interview every living veteran I could. I felt like I was in a race with Father Time. Well, my sister Doris, who's right here, said, why don't you go talk to my friend who was in the Army Nurse Corps? I didn't even know there was such a thing. So I communicated with her. This is not her, by the way, but she told me that her brother was killed over in Italy, flying a fighter pilot, or he was a fighter pilot. So now 2 new groups came to my mind, the men who didn't come home and the ladies. Now, I can say that no lady from Muskegon County was killed in the war. One lady came extremely close, walking into an airplane propeller in Norman, Oklahoma. And she did survive with great injury, but around the country, a lot of Army nurses and Navy nurses were killed because they were right there near the battles and a shell would come in. But in Muskegon County, there are only 3 kinds of veterans. The ones who are here tonight, the men who came back alive, and all the women, because they all came back, and then of course the men who didn't come back. And Muskegon had 436 men who never came home. And you'll see a little bit more about them. Oh, did you notice she's buried in Arlington National Cemetery? Last week we learned all about that. And we have quite a few Muskegon people, like Joe Byerly and his wife, and this lady, and a bunch of others too, who had the honor of being buried there. Ever heard of a WASP? How many of you have heard of a WASP? What? Women's Air Force Service Pilots. These ladies were pilots, all of them, and they all were in dangerous situations because they were flying airplanes in the United States. So far I know of 6 of them. There are a few people here who might remember this one, but that's a special part of the service that a lot of people don't know. I I always try to use a complete description instead of abbreviation. But here I use WASP, and then I wrote Women's Air Force Service Pilots. If you use abbreviations like the clerks did on the discharge papers, the great-grandchildren won't have any idea what that person did. So I try so hard to find out what those words actually were. This is the emblem of the Women's Air Force Service Pilots, or WASPs. There are still some of those ladies alive. Where is Joan Gowron? There's Joan. Okay. Now some of you know the mayor of Muskegon is Steve Gowron. Joan has helped me include all of the people in her family. And this one married into the Opelek family. I got all of them too. But there's something really special about her. She was selected to be the model for a national recruitment poster. She was quite a looker, wasn't she, Joan? Well, there's the artist doing that work. Stanley Gowron was in the family, of course. John was the last one to pass away. And here's one who never came home. Every tribute photo for the men who didn't make it has their age. Because I think that's pretty significant when there's only a person who's 17 years old whose life ended right at that spot for us. This is a Chronicle publication you may have seen. Part of it is called Never Forgotten, an honor roll list of West Michigan war dead. Well, it's not really true. When I started this years ago, I could name one man who was killed because his brother was a friend of mine. Henry Hopkins is the brother of Homer Hopkins, who died on the Arizona. Only one I knew. This is how we remember them, and that's good, but there's no information except their name. Don't know if they were Army or Navy. You see, on Memorial Day we say, we'll never forget the men who died to make us free. Well, we won't remember the men themselves. We remember them as an idealistic idea. And that's what Memorial Day has turned into. What you're looking at here is the website. Out of the men in Muskegon who died in the war, 133 of them, which is 1/3, are not buried in the United States. They're buried in one of the 21 cemeteries all around the world. They're buried where they died, and of course many of them are at the bottom of the ocean, so they are not buried. They are memorialized with a plaque, and this is his memorial webpage. He was never found, of course. I'm happy to say that just about all of those 133 men, I've been able to put their picture right on their webpage for their families eventually to see. It takes probably about half a minute to do that, and the picture is there forever. This is just showing you an idea of what these cemeteries are. They are the best kept cemeteries in the world. They are considered American territory, even though this one is in Italy. There are a couple of them in Italy, and there are quite a few in France and England and North Africa and in the Pacific also. That's where our men are buried. I meet with a group of Mr. Quick every once in a while, and here are 3 of our regular people. This man lost his uncle, the next one lost his brother, and this one lost his cousin. And they all helped me by providing a copy of the picture. There are people in this room who lost a family member, and some of you have helped me include those people in the program. Here's one of my favorites. I have a nice uniform picture of him all dressed up and handsome, but when the family showed me this one, I said, this is the one I want. At first I didn't realize he was wearing eyeglasses from a Japanese soldier. who didn't need them anymore, if you know what I mean. But it shows his weapon. I make sure that the caption is out of the way so you can see his weapon. He is there on Okinawa where his life ended. And he's got a big smile because he didn't know what was coming. Now here, this shows you how extreme it can be. For a while, this Muskegon man was represented by a high school photograph from his yearbook. And just a few months ago, this came by email, a complete surprise from his niece. So now we have replaced the other one and put that up. We do a lot of upgrades because sometimes we have a picture that's not the best quality. Now here's a thing I'll never forget. I met with an elderly lady in Muskegon. No, a person my age. She said, "This is all Mom's stuff, and we have all this box of pictures, and we don't know who these people are because she never put names on them." And the first one she got out, I said, "That's Donald Andrews." Because I have a news article about him. He was killed. So that's why we have a perfect picture of him rather than a newspaper clipping. And here's how the pictures can be upgraded. The newspaper clipping and then a scanning of the real photograph. We're always changing when we get a better picture of these men who gave everything. I met a man at Mr. Quick one day, and he said his last name, and I thought, well, did you know somebody by the name of Bernard Burns? He reached in his wallet. I had no picture of Bernard Burns, and he handed me this picture. It's in terrible shape. What are the chances that the picture I've been looking for months is in somebody's wallet and it's in terrible shape? Well, it's very easy to make it look a little more presentable on the computer. So he now is preserved with a decent picture. How would you like to find a family member of somebody named Smith? Start with the phone book and call hundreds of families and see if the 6 people from Muskegon with the name Smith who were killed in the war, see if you can find their, well, we've been lucky, we have pictures of all of them. That was the very best picture of Private First Class Bernard Smith. We were going to use that. His aunt, no, his niece, rather. I met her and she said, "We have a picture of him. It's in Kansas."
Is what?
And it's one of these big portraits with the curved glass, beautiful frame. She had the family mail it to her. And then she called me up and said, "We've got Bernard's picture." She called him Bernie. "We've got Bernie's picture, come on over." So now he can be remembered with an excellent picture rather than what we had before. I think this tells it all. The father is there with his little girl putting flowers, and he's thinking, "You military heroes gave up all your tomorrows so I could have mine. Thank you." That is the kind of thing that influenced me to say this is the most important part of this project. And that is the men who never came back and are only remembered with a name chiseled in stone, which nobody ever looks at. Here's Leon Miller. That was the best picture we had. Well, when he was in New York City on a furlough, an executive of the Chesterfield Tobacco Company saw him and hired him, probably for very little money, to have a full-page ad in the Collier magazine. Now, very few people remember Collier magazine, but that's a little better than the previous one. So that's the kind of thing that happens when the word spreads. Maybe some of you now are thinking of your extended family. I can say for sure there are World War II veterans in that family who are in their graves, but they don't need to be forgotten if you work with me. Out of the 436 men who were killed, 8 of them are like that. There's no picture at all, even though there's been a whole lot of work, especially from the genealogists. This man is the uncle of my first cousin's husband. They have his picture in Texas. And they've told me, "We'll get back with you." Boy, those are the famous words. "We'll get back with you." That was about 3 years ago. I hate to keep bothering people, but I'm going to get back with her and him. And can you get me a copy of your uncle's picture? Sometimes the picture is, well, it's not much good, is it? He's got excellent information, but that's his high school graduation picture, and it's in poor shape. Someday, his family will somehow contact me and say, "We've got a great picture." Another one at Mr. Quick. I saw somebody who looked familiar, but I wasn't sure. So I said, "Are you Nancy?" One of my childhood friends and her brother. This is the real story of World War II. This man had a wife and 4 young children. He was exempt from the draft. But like others I found, he decided to do something for his country, so he volunteered, he went over there, and that was it. So we have a picture of him filling up his pipe with pipe tobacco, and one more picture that we never would have got if I hadn't run into Nancy. Now here's a man who died in the war. And the family said, "This is it. This is his high school graduation picture. It's all we have." And I said, "Well, thank God at least we got that." There are 2, I would call them photographic miracle makers. Now he's got a uniform. And that's the way he really would have looked in his uniform, because they're able to borrow a uniform from one of the other veterans and switch it out. I can't do that, but they can. Here's a Thomas Snyder, North Muskegon High School graduate. That's his high school graduation picture. It's all we had. Now, he's wearing a uniform, and I put a little notice up there. When he volunteered to cross that bridge in Germany and was killed, he was the closest American soldier to Berlin. And that is an interesting fact and a testament to him. And of course, he was barely out of his teens. Now, here's a story of another Smith that I thought I would never find a picture of this person. The lady on the right is here tonight. Lori, could you raise your hand? Okay. She contacted me and was asking about this project, and she said, "Do you have anybody helping you?" I said, "No, I'm the Lone Ranger." And she said, "I will be your Tonto." So to me, she's Tonto, and there are 2 other ladies who are working and working and working. Have you ever met a genealogist? They're like a bulldog with a bone. They just go and go and go, and they get hung up on and sworn at, but they come up with some pretty good things. This man was in the same high school I was in. I didn't know him back then, but she found him. I think he lives in the UP, and the picture came to us. So what you're looking at there is the display at the LST Museum of the fallen heroes. They are the men who didn't make it. They gave everything. This was featured in the Muskegon Chronicle. He is pointing at that blank spot where his father's name is. And now his father is remembered just like all the rest. And he and his wife were overjoyed about doing this. And I'm always thinking, what about the other families that we can't find? There are only 8 left in that category. Here's a picture I've seen so many times. They would always get the